It's Mr. Todd Macadangdang. Mr. Macadangdang started his career in educational software development. And let me just do one thing before I proceed further. Um, Todd, am I pronouncing your name right? Because I
That's
was so
correct.
worried about.
No, perfect. Perfect.
How do you pronounce it? May I
Macadangdang.
ask?
Yeah,
Macadangdang.
Macadangdang.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad I did that. Okay.
Yeah.
And he has been in educational software development. His career started his career in 1992, providing multimedia development of Simon and Schuster's Computer Curriculum Corporation. Since then, Mr. Macadangdang has developed edutainment and educational products for clients including Disney, Interactive, National Geographic, Edison Learning. He continues to manage educational projects for a number of clients as the director at ETA Media Incorporated, while also serving as a program director of MindSage, a work and life skills program designed to bridge the skills gap between the school and workplace. At this point, I would humbly request Mr. Todd Macadangdang to please take over the mic, and you have approximately another, about 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. That's it. Thank you, sir. Mike is over to you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. You guys have been going for a long time. So again, thank you for allowing me to be here. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you. What I'm going to be talking about in just a moment is planning from the future. Just a couple of comments that I want to make to kind of set this discussion here. We have found here, and maybe you found the same to be true where you're at, that so many graduates come to the workspace and they have all the technical skills they've been taught, and so they have the academic skills, but what they're lacking is the soft skills. So that is the ability to adapt, to innovate, to have initiative, to communicate, all these types of things. And so that's what MindSage is, and that's what we're finding here is how do you get the, for example, when you go to corporations, some of the courses that they teach in corporations have to do with peak performance. And so the question is, why does it take, why do we need to teach people who have already graduated these soft skills, these people skills? Why is it that we start developing it only after they've been given the academic skills? And so our premise, our thought is we need to be teaching children from an early age, not just the academic skills, but more importantly, some of these soft skills. And we'll see how this conference here, which has a beautiful theme, which deals with embracing transformation during COVID-19, is so appropriate. When you think about innovation, we can say this, we can say that innovation can cause change. So for example, if you think about it, and many of us can barely remember when we first got a personal computer. But the invention, the innovation of a personal computer has changed the world. It has launched new industries, this programming software, all these different things that have come about because of the computer. So innovation caused change. What we're seeing today with COVID is just the opposite. We see change, which is a global change in how we live, can precipitate innovation. Not everyone views it that way. And so a lot about what I'm going to say now, again, is my experience with the US K-12 industry, but you might find some of this to be the same there in Pakistan. So what COVID has done is it has shown us or highlighted some of the weaknesses with the current educational system. And what I mean by that is this. There's some statistics here about with regards to teachers, and this is in one area in North Carolina, 15% have contact with all their students. 21% have contact with less than half their students. And there's about 4% or 35,000 people, students in this one area in North Carolina that once COVID started, they were no longer available. They didn't contact their teacher. These teachers don't know where these students are. So here's the point. So many students today are struggling with distance learning And the reason is they have been taught academically, but this other piece, the soft skills, they have not been taught. So their ability to jump online and innovate and adapt, if something doesn't come up, a PDF doesn't download, or just trying to set up Zoom, what happens if your audio in Zoom doesn't work, all these types of things, we're finding, at least here, for a large majority of students, they don't have the skills to operate independently and motivate. They're not able to self-motivate, initiate, or manage their time. So the topic we're going to talk about here is something called planning from the future. And this is something that is done with many companies. And the question is, can something like this be done with education? So planning from the future is different than planning for the future, okay? A lot of companies, and again, what we're doing is we're looking at a business model and then asking, can this be done with education? So planning for the future is when a company is able to say something like, okay, based on what we know, past performance, resources, history, all these different metrics you have, based on what we have, if we look out and plan 10 years, where do we want to be? And so they take the now, the information they have, and from that, they try to figure out where they're going to be in 10 years. This is not innovation, right? This is iteration, you might say, right? So iteration is something much different. Here's what planning from the future is. Planning from the future is a concept where you say, yes, I understand. Here's where we've been. This is the technology we currently have. These are the resources we have. Here's the market share we have. These are all the facts and statistics we have, the data we have. We understand that, but we're going to set that aside. And now we're going to plan from the future. And this means we take a look and say, what is our ideal? What is the perfect vision? Now, the reason why cutting edge companies do this is because when you plan for the future, you're thinking with regards to what's now, and that means there are constraints, there are barriers, there are obstacles. And so you plan with those in mind, hoping that you can overcome them. Again, this is a business mentality. With planning for the future, you're saying, okay, that's all great, but what is my vision? What is the ultimate? What do I want to see? So some folks might say that sounds very difficult. How can you just throw some ideas up there and a vision of what is going to be the perfect situation? That might work for business, but that can't work for education. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take an example, again, from business to show how this planning for the future works. And then we'll see if maybe there are some ideas that we can use here and talk about how it could fit into education, if that makes sense. So here's a prime example of a past individual who did some planning from the future, not for the future, but from the future. In other words, they saw a vision and they just went ahead and started taking steps. And the example we use a lot is Henry Ford. So just stick with the thought here. Henry Ford, he came around and he said, we're going to have this motor car, right? It's a combustible engine. And at that time you had horse and buggy. And there were individuals who said, okay, this is a crazy idea, your car idea. But let me just ask some questions. First of all, how much is this going to cost? And he'd tell them the price, and they'd say, well, that's 10 times my horse and my buggy. That's never going to fly. What's it going to run on? Well, there's this gasoline. It's a byproduct from processing oil, and it's going to run on that. And so these people would say, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to bring a big canister or some kind of container with me? And when I run out, I'm going to fill my car up? And he says, no, eventually we'll have to have areas where you can refuel. Put yourself back in that time. The concept of having throughout the country a place where there would be gasoline stations. That's crazy. We have a horse and buggy. We bring, we just travel, and that's how we do things. Oh, well, what are you going to drive on? Well, we're going to have roads that are smoother because that's what this car will need. You get the idea, right? For someone back then to take the leap and say, we're going to abandon our horse and buggy for this vehicle. There are no gas stations. There are no roads. If I want to get to the other side of the United States, I can take a train. And so it was very hard, you could see, for someone to visualize and plan from the future. But think about it now. Did all those things come into place? You drive, and there's gasoline stations, not just in the US, all over the world, right? Cars are all over the world. So hopefully this makes sense, this illustration. That when you plan from the future, you take everything aside, you say, here's an idea, this is what I want. And then things fall into place, or you develop them, you find partners to develop them. A lot of what you're doing here with just some of the other speakers and just what you're trying to do, looking at some of those promotional videos, it's again, having a vision, putting it out there, and not planning with constraints, but saying, okay, here's a future idea, and we're going to plan from that backwards, not planning for the future, but from the future. The best modern day example is Elon Musk, right? Think about some of the things he's done. People never thought about paying online using email. He's done it. It's changed the world. And now there's been improvements and innovation on that, electric cars, on and on and on. So now that we appreciate this business concept of planning from the future, without constraints, without past history, just what is the best case scenario? Let's do that with education for a moment. And this might be different from how many people view education. But what if we, instead of saying, okay, you need to go to school to get good grades. The reason you need to get good grades is so you can get into a good college. The reason you need to get into a good college is so that you can get a degree from that prestigious college. And the reason why you need that degree from that prestigious college is because you need to get a good job. What if we took that and changed it a little bit? What about if we said, let's train the student. Let's help that student learn how to innovate. Let's keep them creative. Let's really show them how to collaborate. And by collaborate, we mean really listen to each other and understand how they need to solve problems. Imagine a classroom where instead of, okay, you each are working individually on your grades, as a group, you kind of consider how can we as a class improve and learn. I'm watching my time here. And so it's just, we just wanted to introduce this concept because one of the things that we really focus on and try to do with students even before they reach college, in addition to those who are preparing to enter the job market, is give them the skills that were not taught explicitly in the classroom. And if you think at any point that some of these attitudes, habits, mindsets, these qualities, if you think that they're not as important, well, take a look at places like Google. Take a look at all the cutting edge companies. The one thing that to focus on is some of these non-tangibles, these non-academics. So this is, again, just, this is a wonderful forum to be able just to think about the future. COVID has brought changes. The world is changing. So many industries have evolved, and yet education has been very similar for the longest time. It's very individualized. It's all about me, my grades, and my goal. And it's very academically based. Not that that's, of course, that's important, but just think about it, discuss it. Think about what else would you like to see? What would you like your graduates to be? And a great place to start is where do people, where do employers, what are they looking for? I'll leave it with that.
Just going to come into a little, I really got intrigued with this concept when you just put it out there from the Ford's perspective. I mean, I was in I went to university in of course in in US and everything, as I had my education. So when you look at things, and when we look at back at our nation, and somebody came up and said that one day it's going to be this way, this is going to be happening. And when we look at I know it's very common, but when that one sentence, "I have a dream," comes out, and it's just, nobody would have thought that something like that could ever happen. And so I think that with education, um, one of the dreams that one of our mentors, my mentors, and the founder of the University of Management Technology, Dr. Hassan Shuaib Murad, was aiming for, was to come up with institutions that can provide education to all the masses, especially children going up and down, regardless of their financial and like a very very high level education, but not much dependent upon the purse strings. It's not elitist, but coming up with that, and also a second chance in life. Meaning, one of those exams when in high school or something, you're not able to do it, and something happens, you're in bad company or whatever. And those things, when you look at it from the business model perspective, education, you're selling it. You're selling it, you're selling it, you're getting the money in. But having that social, moral aspect, social entrepreneurial aspect, as inbuilt into the model of the business, was something that is not. And as I'm seeing it over the past 8-9 years, I've been associated with University of Management Technology. It, of course, it's a business, it looks like, but a lot of emphasis is that you take people who are not really the creme de la creme of all the the grades that come in. So I think that for the future, we have been working on it, and I think all the institutions and the people who are even from any country that are visiting, I think would really love to look forward and say, what is that profile? What is that person? What is that? What is the concept? What is the graduate you're looking at? Okay, what is that? How compassionate that person is going to be. Like today, for example, with this kind of a crisis happening in the world, we need compassion. We need compassion more than we ever needed before, and not be thinking about self in any way. Although a lot of people are saying it's an opportunity, but that's what I'm thinking. Am I relating to what you were saying, or I was not questioning. I was not a question. It was more like a
definitely. Yeah, that's definitely true. You need to have that human aspect, but really also, in addition, there are, having worked at Adobe Systems, there's a mindset. You have to have people have the ability to adapt. And so many students that I've worked with in internships, they'll come in, they'll know how to do this, they don't know how to program, they can do 3D. And I say, okay, well, try this. And they're like, but that's not what I've been taught. I'm telling you, well, then I can't hire you.
Exactly.
So a lot of these skills, we call them layoff proofing, right? So just one small example. Someone is critical. They're always they're critical, right? So they're always, when someone says, here's our solution, they say, no, it's not going to work, right? They're going to get fired. If you take it one step further, if there's a solution put out in the workplace and you say, that's not going to work, but I think it won't work because of this, my solution would be this. Just by learning how to do that, express what's wrong, and then provide a solution, you go from someone who would be fired first to someone who's going to be kept. So the ability to problem solve, to have interpersonal skills, they're more important than people know. But as you know, you've probably worked with people who don't listen when you talk to them, who are very stubborn, or some people who don't adapt when you say, we're going to try this
Right. It is difficult. It is difficult.
Yeah.
But like I said, we are interesting. I would love, I think we should have you on again. And I'm going to talk to that we need to have you on, if you have time, for even a little bit longer session. And we'll bring in maybe an industrialist along with us, and one of our chancellors from other universities. Maybe we can figure out something. But the time today was less. It was a little less time, and But I have to. I thank you very much, and I really would love to invite you for Monday. From Monday and 5 to 6 p.m. Because that is when we are asking all the people who attended our conference over the next 3 days to please combine. And yes, it'll probably take 20, 30 minutes of your time, not more. I know the time differences are there, but I would appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just one final comment is just to all the students out there. Some of these, the soft skills that are taught at the corporate level, those are the things we want you to have before you even get to your job. Because once you get there, people are going to, that's going to increase your usefulness. And
thank you very much.
Yeah. Anyways. And
no, that's not anyways. That's a very good comment, because that is the more prepared you are beforehand, it'll help you there, because and organizations are not willing to spend more on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate very much.